Good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of March 24th, 2016, called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his discretion. This will be roll call. Mr. Benlian?
Here.
Mr. Charchian?
Present.
Mr. Malekian?
Here.
Mr. Mardian? Mr. Simonian?
Present.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on March 16, 2016. I'm not aware if we have any oral communications or not. Mr.
I do not
Chairman?
have any oral communication cards.
We have 2 items scheduled for tonight's meeting, both of which are new projects. Mr. Chairman?
Good evening. We are going to reshuffle the agenda, and we are going to hear the Myrtle case first, which is PDR 152-7875, 325-331 Myrtle Street. Ms. Toledo is the case planner, and we're ready whenever you are, Ms. Toledo.
Thank you. This project is located, as you stated, at 325 through 331 Myrtle Street. It's actually located just west of Central Avenue. So if you're familiar with the area, it's there's a Lex on Orange on Central Avenue, and then there's a furniture store on the corner. There's a parking lot next to it on the north side on Myrtle, and then you have the subject site. Project site is located on Myrtle Street, both R1250 and R1250 with a PS overlay. But obviously, they're proposing a multifamily building here, so the PS overlay would play a role in this case. The project is proposing to demolish the existing buildings that are currently on the site and construct a new 11-unit, 3-story multifamily, 16,220 square foot multifamily residential building over a semi-subterranean parking structure with 28 parking spaces on 2 adjoining lots. The 2 lots are obviously they're adjoining, they're next door to each other. The total size is 13,521 square feet in size. So again, demolition of the 2 existing buildings on both lots, construct a 28-space semi-subterranean garage with also construct a 16,220 square foot 3-story multifamily residential building, and the building will have 4 3-bedroom units and 7 2-bedroom units. So that's basically the project. Staff is recommending proposal to approve the project with conditions. I'm not going to go over the content in the staff report. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd like to just jump straight to the conditions, and if you have any questions, let me know. In terms of the conditions in your staff report, one of them was to incorporate amenities in the common open space areas. That would include like a barbecue area, benches, a shade structure, something of the sort, to be incorporated again in those areas. There's common open space areas located or proposed at the rear of the building. There's also another on the second floor, and then they have more on the roof deck as well. On the site plan, add continuous planter at living room on the left rear unit, or the left side rear unit, to separate common area from private units similar to the landscape plan. I think this was basically an oversight because they're showing it on the landscape plan. They just omitted it on the site plan. Number 3 is to provide decorative scoring on the driveway ramp appropriate to design and proposed materials. Provide elevations showing downspout scuppers for final review by staff. To verify that the additional density open space complies with zoning code because it cannot encroach into the exterior setback areas. And it cannot include the front staircase in the driveway areas. If you're familiar with, there's a section in the zoning code where if the width of the lot is more than 90 feet wide and you're taking advantage of that density bonus, you have to provide additional open space at the front. There are some standards to comply with. So that's what this is referring to. Thank you. And staff is including 2 additional conditions which we overlooked earlier, which we would like the board also to take into consideration. And I did make the applicant aware of this, to include a condition regarding that we need a window schedule so we can review what all the proposed windows, operation, materials, details, etc. are proposed. And that's obviously very useful during the review process and inspection process. And also we would like a window vertical detailer section of the window so we know the installation process of the window as well. That would conclude my presentation at this time. If you have any questions, I'm available. Members from our design studio staff are also here who reviewed the project.
Do we have any questions for staff?
Just a quick question. If it turns out to be that the open space, or once the how's that going to work if they need to adjust, and is that something that it's going to be staff level review, and if it's substantial, come back to us? Is that something?
I made the applicant aware of it a while ago, and there seems to be wiggle room to lose those additional areas along that they're proposing where they shouldn't be. He can address that in his presentation, but he said we figured out according to his calculations that there's a surplus, but definitely we'll have to review that during the plan check process. But I think this is something we could deal with at a staff level because it's more of a zoning correction as opposed to a design issue.
Isn't the front end of the project, front-facing Myrtle, needs to have that additional 900
Correct.
square feet or something like that?
Correct. There's a diagram on one of the plans where he's showing the calculations of where he's proposing that additional open space.
900 in addition to a delta of the lot width and the 90 feet in the actual lot width times 20.
If they're using the density, then the 900 gets added onto the open space requirement, and that 900 should be in the front of the project, right? Am I correct?
I think it's more than 900, right?
Yeah, it is more than, but because you have the 200 per unit plus the 900. Additional 900. That specific 900 should be in the front of it.
But more specific, and from what I recall, you take the lot width, and then you subtract it from, you subtract 90 from the actual 9 width. So you get the delta of how much of an increase you are over the 90 feet, and you times it by 20, and then you add the 900 to it. And then all of that's supposed to be in the front, and then on the third floor, you're supposed to set back 3 feet of the third floor units that are adjacent to the front common open space that's in addition to the required.
So there's an additional 3 feet on the third floor.
On the third floor of the units that are next to this common open space that's supposed to be placed in the front.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
I'm sure Mr. Collin could.
You basically described it.
So the wider the lot gets, it's actually a lot bigger than 900 because it's that delta times 20 added to the 900.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, besides that, are there any other questions to staff?
No other questions.
Okay. I have the designers and also the applicant owner's card. I assume the designer would want to start off. Yes, JP Boladian.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Commissioner Art and Chair. My name is Jean-Pierre Boladian. I'm the designer from Cataldo's Architect's Office. And to add to Milka's brief, thank you, Milka. I hope you feel better. We addressed one regarding the 900. You're absolutely correct. So we feel comfortable that we have it. I think we showed on the plans the diagrams how we show. You can see it on the bottom, the areas for the additional 900 plus blah blah blah. We brought a sample actually. Milka wanted the window schedule. We have it here if you need it. Generic. All the windows going to be fixed and casement type windows. So last minute we provided to Milka right now for her to overview the window details. It's pretty standard. And the unique about
aluminum
this
or aluminum?
Aluminum. Cladded.
Cladded, okay.
It's a contemporary design, so we're going to keep everything. It's a modern-looking building. The only uniqueness that I've been introducing is the modular art stones. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, which I brought a sample here. Which we're going to use these acid or you guys want it. This is a sample. That it's a modular arts. We have the details. It's something new that we want to apply to the front entrance to screen, and at the same time we get the light through the space and air. It's rich with materials. It's going to be smooth stucco. We have stained wood sidings and two types of colors, and the stone defining some areas of the front. What else? That's about it. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer it.
A couple questions, but before I go, the 900, going back to that 900, it seems like there's a large open space on the third floor. Would that be considered as part of it? It has to be on the ground floor. Okay.
And also, we don't have the revised plans where you're not encroaching into the setback, so that's why we still included that condition.
Sorry, I didn't say it again.
The site plan still shows encroachment into the setback areas. That's why we included that condition. So that
Correct.
would have to be addressed
Correct.
in the future.
Ms. Toledo, you're referring to the additional common open space that cannot
little-
encroach onto the site setbacks.
Or include driveways, staircases, and all.
Based on your analysis, are you meeting the additional common open space requirements?
The 200, as far as the 200 or the other one, the additional?
The additional, which is taking
The 900 plus blah, blah, blah.
900 plus
Correct.
the delta of your lot width
Yes,
from
and
90
then
times
times
20,
20, we do
adding
have
it to
that.
900, placing it in the front setback, not encroaching
Addition.
onto the side setbacks, and pushing your third floor back 3 feet. Is that being met on these
Yes.
drawings?
Yes, we are, and we feel comfortable. We have to tweak it, the little area to make sure. As you can see, the third floor is way set back in. So you can see the third floor is way in from the setback, as you can see. We had that discussion at the meeting, and the numbers are very generous, so we feel comfortable.
Quick question, couple of clarifications. So I see that you have one rendering and there's an updated rendering. I'm assuming we should go with that rendering, correct?
The railing, it was...
Yeah, the railing, I noticed. Now, the question is that this does not appear in your elevation. Is that something that you want to, I'm not sure if it's appearing on your perspective, and I'm assuming it's some sort of a support for this canopy because this is further back.
Correct.
And then on your roof plan, you have the
You don't see it on
trellis. So
You
the
don't-
trellis is there?
Correct, yes, it is. You don't see it on the rendering because it's further in. That's the reason.
Okay.
Because the third floor is way set in from the front. That's why you don't see it.
Okay.
Can I get a clarification on the windows? With the details that you showed, that you provided now, you appear to be showing an aluminum window slider.
Well, we just prepared it like an hour ago before we came here.
Okay, and in our package, we have a metal-clad wood window.
Correct.
So if we could get a verification of what exactly we can be expecting.
All the windows going to be aluminum. The sliders are aluminum, and right now we're going with the cladded window, not fully aluminum. It's going to be cladded aluminum with wood inside.
Well, that's different than what you're showing on. Okay, so because when you said you were going for a contemporary look, the aluminum window probably is more contemporary looking than the aluminum-clad wood, which has those heavier profiles.
We could make a decision. If you guys want it all aluminum, we'll go with all aluminum. That's fine.
Yeah, let the board.
Yeah.
And then just one other confusion on the windows. On your elevations, you're showing casement and fixed windows rather than sliders. Are there sliders in other locations?
The sliders are the doors.
Of course, yeah.
For the
Okay.
doors.
But the windows are all casements?
Casement.
Okay.
Mr. Bradian, there was a condition by staff which asked for some common area amenities. Have you put some thought into that? Do you have some items you'd like to share
Yes,
with
we
us?
for the barbecue and all the. We have in the rear. We have a barbecue area. I think we showed it. It's been a while. We separated between the rear. We have see it from here, and then we have a rooftop common area, common area on the rooftop too as well.
Okay.
We will address the furniture layout and all that as we go further in.
But in terms of built-in barbecues, you have it on the rooftop as well, or only in the back?
I think it's in the back, on the ground level.
So may I ask, what rooftop amenities are there, or are there any?
Sitting area. It's casual sitting on tables.
And this is you mentioned a furniture will be dealt with later. Is this contemplated that it'll be furniture up there?
Correct. Outdoor furniture.
That outdoor sitting area on the roof level, if it's eliminated, is it detrimental to your calculations? On your,
I believe so.
That was my
Yes.
question. I was going to ask that.
It's
same
not a
question.
big.
because
it's not a big area.
the issue is that I think you're over 750 square feet, so you may need to provide a second exit to that.
I don't think so. We needed more than 750 feet for the upstairs.
I'm just saying, I may be wrong.
I think we should be.
wrong.
I have one
Okay.
stair going,
Okay.
accessing to the top, but I don't think I need more than 750 feet. I don't believe it.
You might not need it, but I think you're showing it.
The two stairs? No, I'm showing one stair.
You're showing one stair, but I think you're
Area.
showing the area as of
We
more
have
than 750.
But-
Yeah,
Overly sized, that's
But-
why.
Yeah.
Question is, at the moment, you don't have the elevator going up to your roof deck, correct?
No, it goes to the third floor.
And so, in reality, I don't think code will allow you to call that a
But he
common
has a
open
common area.
I have on the
third
first
level.
floor.
on the first floor.
The third level.
Doesn't require.
Additional.
It's additional. So coupling with your question, is any of the common open space on the roof deck needed in order for you to suffice and meet code
Yes.
of your common open space requirement?
Yes,
And are you confident you'll be able to include that without elevator access on your,
yes. I don't need the elevator to go to the fourth floor.
so you could count it
Because
as common open space without having elevator access to it?
Yes, because the elevator if you have the same type of use, you don't have to provide, it's like any regular office or building. So the elevator does not require to
You
go
might
to-
want to look into that.
I'm sure.
The
I'll
difference,
look at it.
the difference here is you have access to views from the roof that you wouldn't from the lower common area, so we'll have to check with building and safety about
Yeah.
that.
I just think it's important to bring up because that might be an issue for you later.
I think it's simple. I mean, you just extend the elevator and you're done.
No, I don't object. I mean, we're looking into it, whatever. If it is, it is. If it's not,
It
but
is,
I
it
don't
is.
see it
Exactly.
right now, but we will look into it.
Well, do we have any other questions for the designer? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vladian.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cholakian? Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Cholakian, proud resident and business owner of Glendale for almost 2 decades now. And this is a new field for me as far as the development's concerned. And given the opportunity, we're proud to grow once more in the city of Glendale. I appreciate your time and effort and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this case? Mr. Baladian, I don't really think there's a need for you to have a rebuttal since there was no other speakers. With that, I'll close the public portion. Mr. Malikian, you want to start us off?
Sure. I really like the design. I think it's done really nice. A lot of the details as it's been indicated, you got a lot of variety of different elevations. So I think it works out really well. You can't see it on the elevation, but when you start looking in perspective, the volumes start to play, and it's been accentuated with material. So I think it really brings out the details, and it will allow them to kind of work out a lot of the interesting integration of these materials. One of the things that I wanted to suggest, and these are consideration, is there's some canopies that are placed on the north side that it's kind of randomly placed. So I would suggest for those to be either removed or placed over doors that it's consistent with the front. That's pretty much the only thing that I see on the elevations. The rest of them, I'm glad that I saw the new perspective. I think it addressed some of the inconsistency that the original perspective had. The other thing is that there's, just go through and make the drawings a little bit more consistent compared to the perspective and what we're looking at, some of the windows on the elevator and stuff. But in overall, I think it's designed really well, and I'm okay with it.
Jarchin?
Thank you. I agree. I think the design is a refreshing design. I have 2 areas of concern. One, I think, was addressed in the comments by the architect, and I'd like to make it a recommendation that a amenities list with furniture be included in the final plan for the rooftop. I think the rooftop, if it's left as is, would not be inviting, and since by my calculations, they're depending on about 600 and change of the square feet there to meet their minimum requirements. I think it would be important to make sure that there's amenities up there. And then I would invite my colleagues to comment on the 2 water features, given the drought resistance, landscaping push that we're doing in the city. I think that the 2 water features, although nice amenities, might not be appropriate given the state's continued, drought condition. Lastly, there's one other. And I would suggest maybe considering, using the internal water fountain feature, maybe convert that to a planter for the time being, or maybe a joint use to convert it back to a water fountain at some time in the future when we're not in a drought condition. I did want to clarify one issue, and so I know that you're not feeling well, but and I'm going to probably make you speak on this one. The one visitor parking that's handicapped, is that the only visitor parking spot?
Let me double check on that.
Other than that, I'm in support of the project as designed.
Thank you, Mr. Chauhan. Mr. Balian?
I agree with my colleagues. It's a well-designed building. Initially, I had some comments when I was looking at the perspective with the green and yellow and all the other stuff, and especially the railing at the lower balcony. It's like not consistent with the overall design. But when I looked at the revised perspective, I think it addresses most of the issues. I'm in support of the project. It's a good-looking building.
Thank you. I support the project as well. It's well thought out, well designed. Seems to have a very nice contemporary look to it, and it's refreshing to have a roof deck
Yes.
on these multifamily units, because at times we don't see that too often. So I absolutely do believe that it's nice to amenitize it as well. So job well done. And with that, I'd like to have staff review the conditions for us.
Mr. Simone, there's waiting for a response from Ms. Toledo. And
Regarding the guest parking.
So they need 3 visitor parking spaces because there's 11 units, it's quarter per unit. And they're proposing parking space 1, which they've identified as a handicap, which is fine. Then they also have identified number 15 and number 16.
Perfect, thank you.
So that would be the 3.
I have one more consideration. I think, and I'm not a landscape architect or never been told that I am or try to be, but when I kind of do a Google search on some of these plantings, I think it would be wise for Mr. Tyson to look at the selection that he has chosen, and it's unfortunate that it's not consistent with the design that you're proposing. It's a very traditional planting, and so you may want to consider looking into this and kind of accentuate some of these design. I think definitely it's going to be it's going to be a problem, I think, later on. Once you start seeing these plants grow, and it's just some of these hedges and bushes and the stuff that he's using, he just constantly uses it everywhere. So I think in here it meets the requirements, but unfortunately we don't have a landscape architect, so I wish we would have somebody here that can tell me, planting a crepe myrtle tree in a 30-inch box, a 20, well, let me see. Crepe myrtle, 36-inch box tree in a 2'6" deep dirt. Is that going to survive? I mean, is it going to be something that it can happen or not?
The rule of thumb we learned from former board member Palmer was to add 6 inches to those dimensions of the box, so the planter is 6 inches bigger than the box size.
But even that's at the planting level, but what happens when it starts growing? Hopefully it grows, and so what happens then? And so I think some of these planting, I mean, and then I don't know if, I'm sure they are drought tolerant, and that's what it follows, but I don't mind seeing gravel and some cacti and some other, even though you don't want a cacti, something a little bit more contemporary.
Well, we can make that a consideration, and you look into it. Yeah. I'll better the design. Okay.
So the conditions that we have so far, going back to what was on the original staff report, and they have been repeated, you've made similar recommendations to incorporate amenities into the common open areas, to include, barbecue, which he plans on the podium level, benches, possibly a shade structure. At the rooftop, it should include some type of furniture so that it is a usable space. Another consideration regarding that open space, will be to confirm that the space on the roof, since it is meeting the open space requirement, that there isn't the need to have accessibility by an elevator because of the amount that's up there, and that if the amount needed to be diminished in any way, that in order to eliminate the need for the elevator, or because the elevators needed to provide equal opportunity because of the views, that there's a way to accommodate it elsewhere. Is there anything specific in that you would want to?
You mentioned a shade structure on the roof. I didn't hear that mentioned.
Shade structure possibly at the podium level.
Shade structure
Not on the
at a
roof, at the podium level.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. The windows, did the board have a preference for the type of window?
We would agree, I think, with Mr. Platt in that if it's a contemporary building, aluminum windows are more appropriate.
Okay. So there'll be casement windows of aluminum. Another condition is that the canopies on the north side be removed or placed over doors consistent with the front elevation. That the two water features, I believe this is a consideration, that the two water features might not be appropriate due to the drought conditions, and possibly, in particular, the one that's in the courtyard be converted to a planter with the potential to become a water feature in the future if the water availability should change. And then another condition, that the plant selection be reviewed so that it be more appropriate to the contemporary design. And
I've just got one. Staff will just review the drawings submitted to make sure that the plans, elevations, and renderings are consistent, and it seems the board prefers what you're seeing on the revised rendering that was submitted.
And then the other, were you in agreement as to the other conditions that were in the staff report, which included verifying downspout scuppers, since I don't believe that was shown on the drawings, providing decorative scoring on the driveway ramp that's appropriate to the design. I believe the planter that was shown in the common area is actually there. It's shown on the landscape plan, so number 2 has been met.
It needs to be coordinated.
Okay.
With the landscape
Okay.
on the site.
So that's what we have.
Okay.
Okay.
I believe that took care of it all.
Okay.
Does anybody want to entertain a motion?
I'll move to approve the project with conditions and considerations.
I'll second that.
Okay, that was a motion to approve with condition by Board Member Malikian and a second by Board Member Benlian. Roll call. Board Member Malikian.
Yes.
Board Member Benlian.
Yes.
Board Member Charchian.
Yes.
Chairperson Simoni.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Our next case is PDR 152. Sir, we can't have cross-communication, but are you here to speak on the first case that we just finished? Yes. Unfortunately, we've already closed the public portion, and that's why I asked out loud, I said, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak about this case?
I was invited here, and probably I was in the wrong meeting because I have not heard anything, any concern about the public regarding health environment, how it will affect
Right.
me being a instructor.
So this is what I suggest. This is what I suggest. I understand. Allow me to, right. Because we have, sir, please listen to me if you would. I want to forward you to the case planner who will be able to help answer your questions. Okay. Well, we'll move on to the next case because I think the gentleman already left the premises. PDR 1524214, 1630 Capistrano Avenue.
Sometimes.
Is Chris in the room? Is Mr. Baltikian in the room?
On his way.
Be careful, it's heavy. It's heavier than it's
Interesting product.
It is.
Is that heavy?
It's quick. Go figure.
They like that.
Can I sit back here?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Baltikian, we're waiting for you, so whenever you're ready, start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. This next design review case is an application to make an addition to an existing single-family dwelling. The project site is located at 1630 Capistrano Avenue, and the proposal, in a nutshell, involves some modifications to the existing single-story house in terms of some deletion from the ground level, some addition on the ground level, and the addition of the second story on top of the house. At the same time, the existing detached garage would be demolished, and an attached garage will be added to the house, to the proposed house, to the proposed building modifications. Staff has worked with the applicant for some time to refine the design, and the project architect has refined the design, has introduced a significant amount of building articulation. The building detailing is consistent throughout. So staff's opinion is that the proposed design is consistent with our design guidelines, and there still remains one point of contention, and that's why this project is before the board for discussion. Staff doesn't think that the garage in the front of the house is appropriate and is consistent with the pattern in the neighborhood. The garage is pretty prominent based on the proposed design, and staff's recommendation is for the board to approve the project with a couple of conditions. One of the conditions is to either recess the garage or build some habitable mass next to the garage to make the garage less prominent. And the second condition is relatively minor, and it relates to the fence walls. Any proposed fence wall should be decorative on both sides, the subject property side and the neighbor's side. Having said this, the project applicant has provided a study of neighboring buildings that have the garage in the front of the house. It is staff's observation that those properties that have the garage in the front are either ranch-style properties that are wider with a larger portion of the habitable house fronting the street and thus rendering the garage less prominent, or the garages are recessed on those properties. And if you look at the neighborhood plan that's included in with those photographs, you can see that many of those properties that have the garages in the front are wider lots compared to the subject property. Having said this, I would like to conclude my presentation unless there are questions from the board. The project applicant is in the audience for questions.
Can you, may I?
Yeah, of course.
Can you explain what you meant by putting the garage and having a habitable room next to the garage?
Yes.
Can you explain
If I may approach.
Yes. I can't.
If we look at the site plan, the proposed garage is in this location. It's a little more clearer in the floor plan. The garage in this location competes with the rest of the habitable portion of the house.
Okay.
Our thinking is maybe this mass can be increased in the front to make the garage less prominent, or the garage
They have
recessed.
room?
Yes, there is room. The front setback is quite deep, is much larger than the minimum required. That will have to be weighed against the existing oak tree in the front. There's a large parkway oak tree. The oak tree is at this location.
So that one, okay.
It's clearer in the landscape plan. The landscape plan indicates that oak tree together with its drip line. It's a large oak tree. Staff has reviewed this, and we think that the existing driveway, along with the driveway approach, are proposed to remain in their current locations. The house, as proposed, would be set back from the oak tree canopy. And
Do they have the FAR?
yes, the FAR meets code. And the details of the oak tree, together with the construction-related mitigation measures, will be added in plan check if the project is approved and proceeds. Plan check.
In that case, the way the drip line is depicted on the landscape plan, it seems as though, you know, that habitable space as depicted on the plans as study could maybe come out even as far as the third paver. That's right.
Right, or some habitable space can be added together, maybe with a patio cover. So a combination
Sure.
can make the garage less prominent. That hasn't been proposed. We haven't looked at it, but it's a recommended condition. Or recessing the garage.
I'm correct. From the staff report, I think they're at the maximum of what they can build. They're allowed like 2,700 square feet, and they're at the 2,000.
The FAR is close. So in addition, for instance, in the front would entail reduction from somewhere else.
Would
Needs
a
reduction,
covered
exactly.
porch count towards the FAR, or is that just lot coverage?
That's only lot coverage, not the FAR. So that can be studied and added to the front of this habitable space.
Okay. Well, we could see what the architect's thoughts are on that one notion. Anything else we should know about?
This is all I have to say unless there are further questions for clarification.
Do we have any more questions for staff? Thank you, Mr. Balvikian. Thank you. Patrick Zorabians? Good evening.
Good evening, board members. My name is Patrick Zorabians. I am the property owner and architect. I basically wanted to go over the exact same issue you guys were just talking about. It was basically condition number one. As far as the condition number two, I have no problem with adding a decorative finish on the neighbor side of the proposed walls. What we were proposing was basically concrete block walls with a smooth stucco finish, and I have no problem applying that same finish as long as obviously it's possible to apply to the neighbor side as well. In terms of the concern staff has with the garage, we took into consideration after we read the staff report, we took into consideration this condition by doing several different studies. And in the end, we came up with something that we believe addresses that concern. I have some drawings, if I may distribute them. I made several copies of them for you guys. So Gives you an idea. Should I give it to him the complete final set?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's right.
So if you
Similar.
actually take a look at this, we did a couple of things. First, we brought out the entrance and the study. There's a study room to the right of the entrance. We brought those two areas closer towards the street, and as recommended by staff, and we aligned it with the facade of our adjacent neighbor. We also eliminated the hip roofs at the first floor and introduced a shed roof going across the garage, and also gable roofs to break it up a little at the entrance and the study area. These two things being done, basically, we believe addresses the concern. I mean, I think it makes the garage a little bit less prominent as a concern, and we think it sort of addresses that. I'm here for any questions, and
Do we have any questions for that?
So do you like this, the result of this?
I'm okay with it. I
second-
prefer the original design. But I'm okay with this. I'm
Because
I'm
right now you have maybe, I see at least two different soffit details that you've created, two different types, and then you got two, maybe three different roof types on this one. It's addressing what staff is recommending, moving this forward, but I think you start coming up with some issues as far as different types of roofs. I like what you've done at the bottom. I mean, I really like this. But when you start looking at the top, obviously the top portion works with this design.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like the top was not thought of as the bottom was thought of. So that's why I'm a little bit concerned about maybe, so we'll talk, but I just wanted to know if you prefer this over this, because then we can talk.
Honestly, I prefer the first
Yeah.
edition. That's why I actually submitted that originally. But I'm okay with this option. I think it still comes out nice.
Okay.
I have no
right.
issues with this one.
Okay.
Thank you. Myrna Stanley?
Get a copy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and board members. Myrna Stanley, Verdugo Woodlands West Homeowners Association. We looked at these plans on Monday night, and we think it's a good project, with the exception of the front-facing garage. And I do have a concern about the oak tree. I drove by this house, because it's only one street away from me, on the way in, and I did not see any there's street-facing garages, but they're set way, way back. I mean, you'd have to look for them. So I don't know which houses I could have missed them, but
There's a study that we could let you look
I understand. And are they are they in that block?
Yeah, well, you could look at it.
Okay. And the other thing is that I haven't seen what the design option is, the change. So I don't know what you're discussing. But I'm asking that you consider a side entry garage, maybe. That would, and he could do something, whatever, with the wall. I understand that he wants to keep this garage sort of at is, because it's going to grandfather the interior building wall. So maybe you can do that with a side entry garage, because that would be so much more in keeping with the neighborhood. And our concern, of course, is once you allow one, I understand you look at these individually. Once you allow one, how are you going to say no to the next one? And I don't think you can. My other concern is I was discussing with Mr. Zarabian this wonderful oak that's over 130 years old was there before that street was developed, and it isn't. Our concern isn't just with the drip line; it's the roots have no place to go. I mean, there's a small sidewalk, there's the curb, there's the street. We lost a tree last week down on El Rito that was larger than this one, if you can believe it, and it just no signs of distress, nothing. It just fell over during the night. Thank God it was during the night, or it would have killed somebody. But of course, and then when we lose these trees, they don't replace them with oaks. They put a magnolia in or Chinese flame tree or something. So we're trying to maintain our oak tree canopy. So when they take down the construction fence and do all this construction, they're going to bring trucks in with heavy trucks with bags of cement and lumber, and you're impacting the roots of that poor tree that's just trying to maintain where there's room, and there is hardly any room. So it's the garage, and if you could condition that maybe there won't be any construction vehicles parked on the front lawn during construction, that would, I think, would help the survivability of the tree. I asked that we have the arborist review this, and I guess there just wasn't enough time. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Next speaker is Jerry Nugan, and I so apologize if I mispronounced it.
Hi, sir. Good evening, board member. My
How do
name
you
is
pronounce
Jerry
it?
Nguyen,
Okay.
and I resided at 1634 Capistrano, to the left of the subject property. The concern that we have about here is that when I'm looking at the current post frame on the property to mark the position of the place, we are concerned that where the second floor boundary ends toward the rear, and once the existing garage is demolished, it's going to overlook our backyard and our swimming pool on our side. And we are afraid that that we probably don't have that privacy that we used to have anymore. We welcome the new owner. We don't want to change it to make the neighborhood looks better, but we also concerned about the privacy, and also the window on the sketch. If I'm not mistaken, there's a window more toward the rear on the side. And that's what we are concerned about. Is it going to be right on our side? I don't know if there are any other windows looking straight toward the rear of the property or not. Just on both sides of the property. I'm on the east side, I believe, of the property.
Okay.
And that's all we have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Mr. Bedrochi? Yes, please come on up, state your name for the record.
1624 Capistrano.
Good evening. Yes, go ahead.
A couple of things. It's not major, but it is there. Recently I put a swimming pool, which is just next to the western side of that building. And the windows, where it is situated, it is overlooking the back of the garden and the pool. Is the privacy which is important for the family and myself. And I would wonder, is any possibility that window at that side could go higher? That to become less obvious.
Are you referring to the lower level window or the upper level?
I'm talking to the upper level. And
you said, I'm sorry, you said you're on the west side. So if you're standing from the street, you're looking at...
Starting from the street, on the left, which is my east, and then it is his west, isn't it?
Sir, what is your property address?
1624 Capistrano. It's next to, exactly opposite to the other gentleman, the other side.
No, I think you're.
You have the two-story home?
No.
You're on the west elevation.
Are you next door?
I've got a single.
To the right, and the other owner is to the left. Okay, so if we're facing the house, you're to the right. Okay.
Yes, I'm on the right of his property.
Gotcha.
All right. Thank you.
So there are three windows overlooking from that facade.
Yeah.
2 bathroom windows and 1 bedroom.
And the other question I had, my solar system is on that side of the building there are 2 bedrooms. Between the 2 bedroom, put the solar for the pool. Is it going to, by going up, is it going to affect my solar system? I'm just questioning.
You have a solar panel on your 1-story roof, and is it closer to his property, or is it on the other side?
It is close to property.
Is it? But the solar panel wouldn't be facing west, or it would be facing south
or west.
It can be west,
yes.
but
because the roofs was in such a way they didn't have much option.
I see.
I had
Okay.
to use.
You answered.
so the sun is doing that. So
We're all drawing a diagram.
Yeah, it's like-
The sun would have to be very low in the sky to do anything.
Because if he's on the right side, then he's on the west side, in which case, if the solar panel is facing Mr. Zorabian's property, it'd be getting morning sun.
The solar companies generally install them facing southwest, but not
yes.
north or east. So
yeah, so there may be some possibility, but I don't think
Not
it's-
much, yeah. Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to speak about this case? No. Mr. Zorabians, do you want to come up for the rebuttal? Sure. If any? And if you could maybe even touch upon the solar panel issue, if you could enlighten us on position, location, et cetera.
I honestly have not seen his solar panel. I'm assuming it's for his pool. I don't know if it's on his roof or it's somewhere else. But he's got a couple. There's I think a guest house or something, or some kind of pool room off of the pool. So I don't know if it's there or where it is.
This house is far away, the other side of the.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure where it is, but generally, yes, they put it on the southwest side, facing that direction. And again, unless the sun is extremely, extremely low, I don't think it's going to affect it too much. But if you take a look at the existing height of my building, also, I have a really, really high pitch on the single story, and the height is not a huge difference from that point. When you add the second floor. Okay. What I did want to discuss is the garage. Again, I know Myrna brought up a side-facing garage as an option. We did that study initially. It's just not physically possible. There are certain site conditions that are site-specific. One is, obviously, we're a narrower lot than most of the other properties there. A lot of the properties there are 75 feet wide. We're narrower. So if you take into account the side setback requirement, which is 6 feet plus 21 feet for the garage, that really that's what, 27 feet. I don't even have the backup space to even come out and turn from the side-facing garage. On top of that, I can't really build anything underneath the oak tree, which she demonstrated she's concerned about, and she wants to, have measures taken to keep that intact. I can't just build underneath that. Basically, I have a 40-foot setback, and pretty much a lot of it is taken up by the oak tree canopy. Also, aesthetic-wise, I mean, if I take the garage and I have it side-facing, you're really not going to be looking at anything spectacular. It's actually going to condense or make the other livable space, the entrance, it's going to squeeze all that off on one side, and you're going to be faced with basically a wall with either a small window or just a blank wall for the side of the garage itself. So, I mean, I've looked at that option. I've looked at many other options. This is really the best and efficient option we sort of came up with.
There was a notion that Mr. Balyan brought forward, which was perhaps introducing a porch in front of that study, some sort of a Spanish porch that would have some sort of a Spanish sort of a colonnade or a roof above it that would match your rafters above. Is that something that you think you'd prefer over the sketch that you provided?
I'm open to it, but I mean, I'm open to it. Again, the thing I prefer the most is what's been submitted. I mean, I've spent the last 7 months going back and forth, refining the design of this building with staff. So I'm really confident in the design that's been submitted. I am open to the option that I sent to you guys, that I gave to you guys actually right now, and also, if you propose some sort of porch in the front to help that out, I'm open to it. But that's it.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for the designer? Okay. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and close the public portion. Mr. Balyan, you want to start us off this time?
Yeah. In terms of the overall design for the one that was submitted initially, for me personally, I felt that it's well designed. All the details are in place. Mass and scale is there. The way they pushed the second floor and the west elevation is also pushed in. It helped break up the masses. Windows are consistent. Style is consistent except for the back windows with they're introducing like arch windows, which is not introduced anywhere else. I thought that was like a little bit odd, but rafters, I mean, everything looked good, and I totally agree with the staff about the garage, and it's so prominent. And you've mentioned it, it's a narrower lot, so basically you have your 22 feet or whatever the width of your garage. It's overwhelming the elevation because the other portion is a little bit even smaller than that. And so pushing that section, the livable section, to the front, or pulling it to the front a little bit, helps, and I like this. But I agree with Mr. Malikian. When you did that and you changed this, the roof over the garage, there is something missing. There's some kind of, it didn't carry over to the second floor. I believe this is fine. You can pull this off, but you need to rework this area with the second floor just to make it happen. Mass-wise and diagram-wise, this I think this will work and will look much nicer than having it all flush. And it'll be more articulated, and you'll have more area too. The only thing is, I think you need to work this portion here and how it works with the second floor, and just refine that. When you did that, you just kind of ignored the second floor and you left it exactly as it is, and that's not matching up. It's just not cohesive with the whole thing. Overall, I think it's a good-looking remodel. It's an improvement. So that's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Charchian?
Thank you. So, I battle with the design in the sense that it does have that garage that is somewhat prominent, but I think that the survey that applicant provided really sheds a lot of light on the fact that this front-facing garage is not unique to this neighborhood. This is not a unique suggestion for the neighborhood. In fact, there's 3 homes, arguably 4 homes, within, I'd say, 100 feet of the property that featured this, front-facing prominent garage. Now, some of the lots might be a little larger, but I think that doesn't make the garages any less prominent. For me, the focus, though, for this particular lot is the tree. And I agree with Ms. Stanley and her comments about the trees and the woodlands and how important they are. In fact, this morning I actually woke up in the Sequoia National Park and took a 6-hour drive back down here for the meeting. And as I was up there, I was reminding my kids that they can't just go traipsing around anywhere off trail because of the fact that the root system of these trees are very important. So I would ask staff, whatever purview we have to limit access of heavy trucks and things of this nature on that driveway, and make sure that there's absolutely no concrete mixing. And I'm sure the applicant is well versed in this. There's no concrete mixing, dumping, anything like that that's going to affect that tree. I think that that's prominent. Now, with that, though, when you look at the tree issue, and you look at this 150-year-old, actually probably, more closer to 150-year-old oak tree in this neighborhood, and I've walked this neighborhood. I'm a couple of one street over, and I would be within the 500 feet radius because I live on Hillside. This tree and its root system, I think, precludes us from suggesting that we add mass to the front to offset the mass of the garage. And even a Spanish-style porch would require trenching, which would undo my concerns about the tree and maintaining the tree. And also the way that the tree's canopy works, I think, also works to minimize. I was out there. I've been out there previous to this, but I specifically went out there on my way here to just take one last look, and that canopy, that oak tree, kind of hangs over the front drive, and so I think that also minimizes the effect of the garage. One suggestion on minimizing the garage might be working with the actual material of the garage door, maybe working on cutting the cutouts of the doorway. That there's some detail there that
more
might
of a
be
traditional Spanish,
slightly more
door.
Traditional of a Spanish garage door. They've done that with the entryway. This new entryway that they're suggesting just doesn't fit with what I'm seeing here. The tile work that they had placed on the back and that they've carried for that's a carryover from the front. These are things that I think they've spent a lot of time on, and I would be remiss not to take the tree as one of the primary conditions on this lot. Now, with that said, there are a couple of small issues that I think need to be addressed. One is the second-story lighting fixture that almost seems like it's hanging outside the patio area, and I would say that we want to suggest that it's kind of within the closer into the patio area, so it's functional and serviceable. And then secondly, in the back on the west elevation, I think there needs to be something that breaks down the volume that goes between this window and the back here. This volume here. Something needs to, I think, break that up for the neighbor on the west side. As far as the comments about solar and privacy, Mr. Platt did clarify that those were not public area windows, so I don't think we can comment on that. As far as solar rights, just a clarification, I don't think there is in the city of Glendale solar rights, so I don't want to comment on those either. So that's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Malekian?
Thank you. I'm always cognizant of when the project comes in and when it's becoming a contentious item as far as what staff thinks, what neighbors think, and as far as the design, and I'm concerned about setting a precedent. In this case, there's definitely several examples within as Mr. Churchian explained, having the garage in the front. So I think our task is to make sure that it is designed well and it's scaled properly. I appreciate the second design that it was brought in. I like the bottom portion, as I indicated. I like this juxtaposition of these two facades that we have. It reduces the mass, but as Ms. Charchian said, that we have to be concerned about the tree. I do appreciate the concept of turning the garage and putting it on the side. I think the dimensions may work, but I think the big problem for me would be is majority of the front would be driveway. You have to create a large driveway to get in there, and essentially you're going to be cutting through the pathway for the pedestrians as you come in, whereas this proposed plan, you have a driveway, you have a pedestrian, and you have a landscaping. So it's kind of divided into these nice zones that I think it can be definitely designed well. Whereas if the garage is in the front and it's not wide enough, then the whole thing gets cut off, and basically the whole entire front is garage and the driveway. So I think that option for me does not work. I like the second option. I like the first option. I like the first option because there's a lot more thought has gone into that, whereas you can definitely tell this was done very quickly to bring and show us what the result would be. But I think a little bit of an effort, if it goes into the second option, I'm fine with that. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide on that. But pulling the front entry forward may actually help as it is doing on this one. I'm not sure, how you would address the roof of that. And I think it would result in what the second option is doing. But I think if it is going to go into the second option, you may want to introduce some gable roof rather than a hip roof on the second floor to bring in this option here to become some of this element kind of goes up there and then kind of carries that over. I'm not sure if you have gable and hip and all over the place. So I think a little bit of a thought has to go into the second floor. I'm not sure the tail ends of the soffits, how you've treated in the front. I think I would want to see that as it gets carried up on the second floor, as it would do on the ends of the garage on your second option. These little tail ends, how you would do here and here. So I think that's a really nice detail. I think if you're going to carry that, I would carry that throughout. But in overall, I'm fine with the project. I think scale-wise, it's fine. Massing-wise, it's fine. As far as the windows, consider reducing the size. I know it's large windows. It's nice to have in the bathrooms, but if you consider that would be great to reduce that, or even obscure that would be another option. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Milliken. Overall, I agree with all the comments that are made. In looking at the study that was done, it's obvious that precedent does exist for front-facing garages, and at the same time, the narrower your lot gets, the more difficult it becomes to accommodate a side garage. And in essence, you need a certain minimum width so it doesn't just become garage and driveway. Yeah, exactly. So there's a give and take there. I do think that the design as presented in the package is very well thought out, and it's a very traditional Spanish. It has a very nice tile work around that front entry door. It has that kind of recessed front door, that thick kind of rich Spanish door. It has that big window, fixed window with the dividers, with the actual dividers in the study. And so that coupled with the rafters, etc., really reads well. It's a nice looking Spanish, so we really push our applicants to kind of go towards the Spanish style, and sometimes they miss it. This one really gets it. And now we have these things to try to work out, such as the garage and whether it makes sense to push out the building. I think we all agree that, including the architect, that what was presented is meeting the thought, but however, no one seems to be very happy with the roof structures as presented here. Even the architect prefers what's been designed. And so some work needs to go into this to make it work. So when I'm going last and I'm hearing everybody else on this board, I kind of have the luxury of listening to all these comments and assessing them. Mr. Chachian's comment of trying to create a more elegant garage door with possible windows in it, breaking, whatever that is, that I think would help quite a bit because it would really add to that richness of it. So maybe it's that simple of really going with a very traditional garage door and maybe even applying a very kind of a ornate kind of a driveway or something or another that reads with that kind of a similar language. It might be a very easy way to accommodate that, where it's very soothing and your eye kind of goes from the sidewalk onto a nice pedestrian walkway to the tiles around the front door. Now all of a sudden that's your focal point. That's what you're really looking at. And then the driveway also has similar characteristics. It seems as though that's a very good approach. And then the porch as well, because I could see the porch being added very simply with some thicker timber stained with that kind of a roof that we all envision could just work very easily on this. However, it encroaches onto the tree, right? So what do you do with this scenario? And so when I'm looking at all these situations, I would hate for that tree to be impacted. I do support the porch in the front. I think it would add to it. I think it would fill all the requirements. However, it is going to get in the way of that drip line. So my intuition is telling me to create a very nice pedestrian entryway, such with treating it with some nice material, some tiles maybe, and doing a very nice special garage door would be probably the best approach in my opinion. But I'd like to just, very quickly discuss it amongst us and see where we end up on this.
That works for me.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that the fact that if you focus the attention on the front entry door, being that it's a traditionally nice recessed Spanish door with the tile treatment, and you carry that over with a pathway that gives it makes it the focal point, plus the tree canopy that kind of shades the driveway and the garage door, I think that does accomplish it. That does accomplish it for me.
I agree. Maybe some sort of a nice decorative tile on the entryway. Mr. Malikian, Mr. Balian?
Fine with that.
I'm fine with it. I'm just trying to understand this central that recessed area at the roof. You created this large recessed area in the middle of the building. Be careful of water issues, pondage, the drain on the top. You got a lot of trees there, and you're going to get clogged, and you have no way of getting there, no roof access, no way of, you got to walk over the tiles to get there to clean it and everything. So I would be careful on that. So that's my only comment. But other than that, I think it's nice. It's fine. Oh, and you had a comment in regards to the west elevation, right? You wanted to,
Yeah, the west elevation just
that
seems
wall
something.
is the divider between their outdoor, indoor covered area and the wall that they privacy with the neighbor. What do you want to do? You want to put windows there?
No, I don't know. I don't necessarily want windows. I was just wanting to have comment on whether. I mean, I might be the only one that thinks that it's too much of an unbroken space.
Well, I think it works with the style of architecture. And have vast, plastered, large areas. I think that gives it its character.
It's tricky when you're looking at the elevation, but then if you imagine it in like a three-dimensional world, that thing is set back, so it's not as bad as.
I think it's okay.
That's what I wanted your comments on. And I'm okay with it.
All right, so it seems as though we're leaning towards applying a very nice tile decorative walkway and coupling that with a very traditional, rich, high-quality garage door, and as considerations, possibly raising those windows on your neighbor's side to not infringe as much into their privacy, because you have the large windows facing back anyways.
Maybe if we could find a design rationale for that, that would be really helpful for us.
Right?
Yeah.
This case has all those things, that where you want to do one thing and then all of a sudden there's another yin and the yang to it where it might not be as good idea.
Now, bathroom windows traditionally are smaller. We could lift, instead of having it vertically oriented, we could make it horizontal to fit with a more traditional bathroom window style, if that would help. In reality, the two windows facing the neighbor to the right are just bathroom windows that I think are over the toilets, if I remember. So certainly having those smaller wouldn't be a major impact. And then the bedroom window at the front of the house really isn't looking at the backyard. It's looking at over the side of the house. So
they could also be opaque windows as well.
Sure, we just have to be careful since we can't regulate privacy from those rooms. We have to have a design rationale for choosing to do it.
The architect are saying they're okay with opaque
That's
finish?
great, yeah, just, sure.
Is there an issue with that or no?
There's never an issue with opaque windows. We just want to make sure when the board isn't mandating changes based on privacy.
Oh, I see.
So.
I see. Okay.
So one more consideration, as I did on the past one, I think a little bit of a investigation needs to occur with the landscape plan. There's quite a bit of planting and irrigation under the oak tree, so I would like the plans to be reviewed by the city arborist first. Second, planting ground covers, lawns, or other types of grass, and obviously those will need a lot of irrigation. So I think a gravel, decomposed granite, some sort of a more of a traditional that is consistent with the style, I think it really would help, and that goes with the fountain as well. So, but just a small little effort from Mr. Tyson to look at the style of the building rather than planting trees with his own typical palette.
I'm going to have to add to that comment then. The recommendation was a decomposed granite, which works really well. However, there are some products on the market that actually leach because of the way that they're produced. So you want to take extensive care with that, because actually on a project that I was working on, I had to reject a truckload of product that would actually leach, and because of the way it's
and
produced.
Is there a product that you think
decomposed granite is great, but there's other products that are like decomposed granite that give off this milky white material, and after it washes it into the tree bed, then you get sick trees, and then you wonder why the trees are sick. It's because of the way that they're produced. They basically take a bunch of big rocks, break them down, and they don't wash them off.
Okay. So the decomposed granite, or something that doesn't leach, coupled with a nice decorative tile finish for the entryway. Okay.
It doesn't necessarily have to be decomposed granite, but that's
Something similar.
Similar material.
Does staff want to very quickly summarize the conditions and considerations?
Sure. It sounds like we're moving forward with option one with a few modifications, which I'll mention as I go down, and then I'll eliminate some of the notes I took for option two. No order of importance. We're going to consult with the arborist and standard building and safety practice to make sure that the oak tree is protected during construction. That often involves a barricade of some sort that's built around the trunk, and I don't know, they may lay down some plywood or something in the root area. But I know on other projects we've had consistent protection policies in place. We're going to utilize a more traditional Spanish garage door to kind of help that blend into the overall concept of the design. The light at the second floor porch facing the street will be relocated to be in the porch area. The eave treatment is appropriate. The exposed rafter tails at the first and second floors there in option 1. We are going to use obscure glass in the bathroom windows at the second floor because that is something often done in traditional Spanish-style architecture. So we are going to create a decorative driveway pattern that is appropriate to the design of the house. We're going to have a decorative walkway leading from the sidewalk to the front door, incorporating traditional Spanish-style tiles or pavers. One question that we have is the board seemed to be open to the idea of kind of a low courtyard porch at the front, but you were concerned about how that might impact the trees. Since we have another condition to talk to the arborist, should we see if that porch is feasible? And if so, is that
I'm okay with it if it's
one thing we think it would help
okay.
draw attention to that habitable part instead of the garage if it doesn't hurt the tree. So we'll talk to the arborist about that. We will talk to the architect to just make sure we don't have issues with not having a hatch at that flat portion of the roof, and that could be as simple as putting a hatch up there.
You could have a hatch on the wall, side wall.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just make sure they take that into consideration. It's not a design issue, but we don't want to overlook it. And then we will also consult with the arborist to look at the planting palette and make sure that whatever is under the oak tree is appropriate. If there are appropriate plantings, she could recommend some. If not, we'll go with a decomposed granite or other material, and we'll make sure with the arborist also that what materials may or may not be appropriate for leaching or other issues like that. And let me just double check.
Obviously, that goes
I
with
skipped a page, so...
It includes the irrigation as well.
No, that's... Excuse me?
Includes the irrigation as well.
Under the oak? Okay.
Planting and irrigation.
Okay, that's everything I've got.
Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. Motion to approve the project with the conditions.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Benlian,
Yes.
Mr. Charchian,
Yes.
Mr. Malekian,
Yes.
and Chairman Simonian.
Yes.
Motion carries
Thank you.
4-0.
Next on the agenda is approval of minutes.
We have two sets of minutes, one from January 28th. You want to do that one first, and then if everything's good, I would entertain a motion and second and vote.
That was, all 5 board members were here on that evening. So do we have a motion for that?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
I was.
Mr. Chartier.
Who made the motion? Who made the
Malakian.
second?
Do you have a comment?
Malakian
made the
motion.
I don't know if we need...
I made the motion.
This was the very first review.
And this will be a vote. Mr. Malekian,
Very first.
Yes.
I think one of the
Charchian,
yes.
Mr. Simonian,
Yes.
Mr. Benlian.
Yes.
And then for February 11th,
Mr. Malakian was not present that evening.
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of February 11.
I'll second.
Mr. Charchian,
Yes.
Mr. Simonian,
Yes?
Mr. Benlian.
Yes.
And I need a motion to adjourn.
Adjourned.
Good evening.
Thank you.